Hello everyone, thanks for being here. My name is Radu Coravu and I've been working for Oxygen XML editor for the past 18 years. That's a long time. Maybe 19, okay. And, part of my work involves working on the visual editing in Oxygen, and part of my work sometimes involves experimenting with various technologies and various publishing ideas that our end users give us. And from those experiments, some of those experiments fail, and I don't write about those. And some of those experiments partly succeed, and I may write a blog post about that. So all these blog posts are available on the Oxygen XML blog, and I created this topic, publishing customizations, and I will walk you through the articles that I wrote in the past years about various DITA publishing customization ideas. At some point, several years ago, George Bina created a DITA map metrics report. And this report is a free DITA Open Toolkit plugin, which applied on a user's manual on a DITA map, generates some kind of overview of the DITA map. How many maps it has, number of topics, unique topics, all kinds of interesting ideas like content reuse, how much content is reused in the DITA map. What elements are mostly reused? In our case, maybe DL entries. Some people may reuse tables more and so on. And this particular blog post is about checking out how your project evolved between various versions. So using George's plugin, which creates this overview of the entire publication, but applying George's idea on multiple versions of the same DITA map, you can obtain, using these steps here, and some of these, all these plugins are open source, you can create evolution tables. For example, here I have created a table, evolution graphs. So I have a graph here showing how much content reuse has increased between various versions of Oxygen, for example. And maybe a graph showing how many maps are in the project in version 18, 19, and so on, or how many topics were added to the project between versions and so on. So if we want to create such kind of graphs showing an evolution or maybe an involution of your project, you can take a look at this article. I experimented also with taking a DITA project and then using a JavaScript library to construct a node network diagram to show how the topics link to each other. And I ran this experiment on the Oxygen XML blog. And for example, you can see how topics refer to each other, maybe find topics which are referenced for multiple places and so on. John Kikiris had an idea to create such network graphs also for DITA Open Toolkit plugins. And I have not created an article for that so far, but you can take all DITA Open Toolkit plugins had the plugin XML, and all plugins declare dependencies or other plugins. So with a little bit of XSLT and JavaScript, you can see how plugins in your DITA Open Toolkit distribution extend each other. But this is an unfinished project, let's say. So you can take a base plugin and see that it's extended from multiple other plugins like the Oxygen Zendesk commercial plugin. I created a plugin to allow embedding LaTeX equations in DITA contexts some time ago. So it's a free plugin, you install it in the DITA-OT, and then you have LaTeX equations which get converted to the visual representation of the equation. And so I also took some time in these last years to write a small article about how to use the plugin, how to install it, and so on. So if you want to embed later equations in DITA, this plugin is free to use. I also had a plugin which allowed embedding diagrams, text diagrams in DITA topics using the plant.uml library. So if in a DITA topic I create a textual representation of a diagram using plant.uml, I can then convert it to HTML or PDF, and I have the visual representation of the diagram. And again, this plugin is open source, and this is the article for it. One way to use this feature, we started using it internally. We started creating something called standard operation procedures. We have a data map, and each topic represents a procedure or a workflow in our internal company set of workflows. For example, we may have a procedure for analyzing vulnerabilities. And these procedures are written in DITA, they have an author, created times, they have various data elements which allow us to extract metadata when published, who's responsible for a procedure, who should be consulted, and so on. And sometimes these procedures have elaborate graphs. And this case, this is a plant.uml diagram in the DITA content. And then, oh, not this one. Come on. And then this gets converted to this diagram in the published HTML output, but this works also for PDF. So we started using this idea to use textual diagrams in the DITA map because this allows you to better translate your diagrams in various languages instead of having a PNG or some binary image format. And then recently I added support in the same plugin to embed diagrams using Mermaid. So Mermaid is another library with another syntax for textual notations, diagrams. You embed a DITA foreign element with a certain output class, and then you get in the HTML or PDF the visual representation of that graph. So the same plugin can work both with the Mermaid or plant.uml as engines to render the images in the final output. As I had this cool Mermaid converter to play with, I imagine that maybe sometimes you may have a DITA task, and this task is of course a sequence of steps, and you may want to represent it as a diagram. So I created a small style sheet which, as a customization, is applied on the task, and then it generates a diagram based on the Mermaid library. So this is another way to apply this type of algorithm. One other way to look at DITA task steps is the fact that all these steps need to be done in sequence. So if they need to be done in sequence, you can use this plugin to display all the steps in a tab format, so that people can only see one step and they focus on it, then they go to another step, and so on. This plugin, which was started by my colleague Christian, can also handle code blocks. So if you have consecutive code blocks in your DITA content, for example, one code block for Ruby content, another code block for Python. With this plugin, you can make the published HTML output look like this. So the published HTML output has tabs, and the engineer selects the language that they know, and then they copy the small snippet from here, and no, they go around and use it. For PDF, the plugin, of course, doesn't work. The code blocks remain consecutive in the PDF. And then I had this idea to experiment with converting OpenAPI to DITA-XML in order to publish the OpenAPI content as part of a larger DITA publication. So for whomever hasn't worked with the OpenAPI, I think I had a sample here. So OpenAPI JSON files describe an API which no, not DITA North America, DITA Europe. Yeah. So this is an example of an OpenAPI file. So it's a JSON file which describes the API which a server uses in order to receive content or to give information back to an HTTP client. So if you receive from the engineer such a file, my idea was how can I convert this to a DITA topic in order to have it part of a web help output file. And this was my original article. I tried to use Widdershins, which is an application converting OpenAPI to Markdown. And then I tried to convert Markdown to DITA to just to make the OpenAPI file part of the larger DITA project. And this is an example of an article which ended up being a feature in Oxygen. So with a special plugin, once I refer to the OpenAPI file in the DITA map, I can run the webpack responsive output, and this file is automatically converted to DITA, and then it becomes part of the larger publication, either HTML based or PDF, and then I can search for content in this file, I can link to content in this file, and so on. So this article was, in a way, the stem for a larger feature in our product. In the Oxygen XML blog, we use prologue information quite a lot. So if, for example, I write an article in the Oxygen XML blog, and each article has an author and a copyright year maybe and a created date. And I created a customization which shows this creation date and the author name. It shows it in the HTML generated output in this part. So if I take the DITA content and publish to web help, I get for each topic in the HTML, I get the name of the author and the time when the topic was created. This is interesting if you want to review, if you have reviewers and they review content, they may be interested to know that this topic was created by this person, so that the reviewers may know whom to give feedback to. So this is a customization which shows prologue information in your generated HTML content. And again, because
no, it's something else.
Maybe maybe a motorboat. Yeah. Yeah, I'm stressed with the sound. Once you have that content here in the prologue, it means that at publishing time I can create a list of the most recently created topics. So for example, for the Oxygen XML blog, I have a latest posts, and here I listed all the topics which are newly created, because I have the creation date in all the topics. So this is a publishing customization which creates a list with all the newly created topics and displays it in the output. And this may be also useful if you're not blogging with DITA, which you probably are not. It's useful for reviewing content. If you review a large number of HTML files generated from DITA, you may want to know which are the topics which have been created more recently. And one more thing I created from the same prologue information is this possibility to create an RSS feed dynamically for a generated HTML based on DITA content. So automatically, whenever a DITA map is generated to PDF, to web help, for example, in my case, this feed is created and it contains all the topics or all their titles and so on. And from this feed, you can use RSS feed readers to read, for example, a website. Or in my case, I was interested in having people register to receive new events about new topics on the Oxygen XML blog. And once they subscribe using Follow It is a service which uses the RSS XML to check for updates. And if it detects that another topic is present and published, then it will send emails to people. I got this this idea about adding labels to topics in the webpack responsive output. So it's like this: you have the topic and you define keywords on the topic, and these keywords are defined in the prologue section. So I have this keyword defined in the prologue section with a certain output class value. And after I publish, the keyword is visible. By default, keywords are not visible in the output, but this keyword says that it wants to be a label, so it becomes visible in the published output. And if I click it, I can see all the topics which have the same keywords. So if I define a certain keyword in multiple topics, I publish and then I press the keyword and I see all the topics which have that keyword defined in them. One thing I enjoyed setting up the Oxygen XML blog is that I managed to get a couple of my colleagues to also contribute to it. So, for example, my colleague Alex wrote about how somebody will go around maybe using DITA XML content to feed the Google Chatbot with the information with question-answer information, so that the chatbot may answer to various specific questions. So this article explores having some kind of question-answer topic, and this can be created with a specialization. For example, we created a specialization for questions and answers, question, answer, and so on. So you can have maybe a frequently asked questions topic with a question and answer groups and other groups and so on. And from such topics, once you have them in your content, besides being generated in the HTML and PDF output, with some XSLT applied, you can generate a small database in a comma-separated value, which is then imported in the Google Dialogflow chatbot, so that at some point, after following these steps to import the comma-separated value and so on, the chatbot is active and using your the content that you have provided in the DITA content, it can answer simple questions based on this training material that I provided. We also got on the Oxygen XML blog an external collaborator. His name is Chris Papadimitrios, and he provided two very interesting ideas as articles. One idea is about how crossbook linking can be made to actually work. So crossbook linking is an idea in the DITA 1.3 standard. It's not implemented in the publishing engine, but Chris managed to find some steps in order to make linking between various publications possible using key scopes and key references. So this is the article in which Chris explains their use case, and he has beautiful SVG images. And if you have this need to refer between publications in DITA content and then have these references automatically built at publishing time, you may want to look at Chris's article here. And another idea by Chris was about the DITA Open Toolkit project file. And I think I have an example of a DITA-OT project file here if for those of you who haven't used it until now. The DITA-OT project file is a configuration file which allows you to define all your deliverables. So I say that I have two contexts, a DITA map with a certain filter and another DITA map, the same DITA map with another filter, and then I define 4 deliverables, 2 for PDF and 2 for web help, and then I can use the DITA-OT project files to publish, and it will automatically generate 4 deliverables. So this is a way to script all your publishing needs, the project file. It had some limitations, so Chris in this article explained how he got over these limitations using XSLT to pre-process the DITA-OT project file. So besides adding issues on the DITA-OT issues list, Chris created a style sheet which goes over these limitations. So these are some of the articles that I wrote in the last years on the Oxygen XML blog about exploring DITA publishing. And most of these ideas were given to us by customers, and they looked interesting enough. Just to see if I haven't missed anything, I explored in this article creating PowerPoint slides from DITA content, using MKDocs to take Markdown produced from DITA and then try to create a PowerPoint file based on the contents of a DITA map. The DITA map to Markdown conversion is quite interesting to explore because there are other tools which get Markdown as input and can produce something else. So if you have a DITA map and produce Markdown, and this is available with the standard plugins, once you have the Markdown, you can play with other tools and connect them to maybe to a chain. And also I explored generating a static website by going from a DITA map to Markdown, and then using the MKDocs engine to generate an HTML-based website from a DITA map. And this worked by also applying a style sheet which created a YAML file for the navigation part of necessary for MKDocs. And once that was over, it resulted in an HTML website with search engine and a table of contents with all the topics in the HTML output. So here are my ideas, the ideas that I followed in articles, and try to at least come to some idea, to some conclusion if they may work or not. What do you think about that? Do you find any of these plugins may be useful to you? Yes, Roger.
Are we particularly interested in map metrics evolution?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's super useful. And I wasn't paying attention at the moment when you said, I think you mentioned that open source. Is that something that we can install and use on our own stuff? Or?
Yes, but for the report you need to go back in time, let's say. So you need to produce a certain XML document from the documentation at the various stages.
Is that something that...
You can use the microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Is it on?
Yes.
On. Yay.
Okay. So we have all of that information on prior releases in Git in the form of tags. So is there some mechanism in the plugin that I can use to address those Git tags, or do I just need to check out each tag locally and then run the thing and then check out the next tag and run it again, or?
Yeah, so the plugin doesn't check out things. So you need to check out maybe 4 folders. In each folder apply, each folder would be a version of the DITA-OT documentation. In which folder you apply the open source plugin created by George for the metrics report, and it generates an XML file in each folder. And then there is a style sheet which goes through each XML file and creates a table with the various fluctuations of topics and conrefs and so on. And from that table, applying a style sheet, you generate SVGs. If you want, I can send you more details. There is a it's in the article actually.
I will RTFM. Thank you.
Yes, John.
Yeah, the using plant UML to generate diagrams is something that various writers have expressed, interest in, just because of the time can be involved and, manually diagrammer, and all the layout algorithms are, built into this. So for our own internal documentation about our tools, so that when we onboard new developers, they can understand much more quickly, how things are going on. I think this is a great thing we could use. Hello?
Sorry, can somebody check the camera? I think it's lost the sound. George, can you? Sorry. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. So yeah. So continue, John. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think this would be great for our own internal team, for our own internal documentation, because we don't have many diagrams anywhere right now. It's all written, and the ability to change something in text and then get an updated diagram. And then I guess I'd be interested if conditionalization could be applied to some of these things too somehow. It's not DITA, so I'm not sure how that would work since it's its own kind of text-based language, but that presents some interesting questions at least.
Yeah, so right now you can probably just filter to remove the entire diagram, but not to remove parts of the diagram.
Right.
I'm not sure how that would work.
Yeah, me either.
Thanks, John. What are your other questions for me? Or ideas to blog about? Yes, Yang.
I've been playing a bit with BPMN.
What is that?
Business process model notation. It's like, if you do this kind of diagram, etc. I think that's a much more powerful standard, and that might be interesting to somehow incorporate as an option too.
Thanks for the idea.
Full workflows, etc. And it's even possible to run that on a virtual machine. But more interesting would be to have a diagram of what the whole workflow is, and it has tons and tons of options to describe an actual workflow in a company. So
Thanks.
that might be an idea to look into.
Okay, thank you. Margarita?
About the equation.
just a moment.
Mhm.
About the equation,
Yes.
do you have a dictionary of symbols that can be used and we can reuse your customization to replace other tool to create equations?
Do you want for MathML or later?
Yeah, for example.
MathML, right?
Yeah.
We have, I don't know, this is on the editor part, we have a character map, but we don't have a visual MathML editor, let's say, so we do.
But you have mathematical symbols?
Yeah, they are small symbols like the, I don't know,
It's limited.
you can find them here, I think so. Where is it? Somewhere. There is a character map somewhere, but it doesn't really want to show up. Symbols. Yeah, you have various expressions and you can choose more. But MathML equations are more complex. They are sequences of expressions, fractions, and so on. And we don't have the means to visually edit such more complicated expressions. Other questions? Well, thank you for listening. And if you have any ideas about various publishing customizations, I'm open to experiment on them. Thank you.
Thank you.